All right. Well, welcome to another great edition of Account-Based Fridays. Megan and I are excited to welcome Hunter Montgomery. He's a CMO of Churn Zero. He's a former client of B2B Fusion and also a longtime colleague from Mocha. We did quite a bit together over the years. Before we turn it over to him and get his perspective of Churn Zero and some of the trends that he's seeing in customer success marketing, interestingly enough, this week's poll is actually very much tied to marketing's role in the upsell, the renewal, the expansion process. And the broad question I asked is, how active is customer marketing in that other area of the funnel, almost like the other side of the bow tie, as Megan refers to. And to me, this was not a surprise. I think I've said this before publicly that I felt like in all my marketing organizations, all of my incentive was on new logo acquisition. So it felt to me like best case, people might be dabbling a little bit in customer marketing. Today, it's certainly more established with a lot more systems and a lot more processes. But I'd be curious, Megan, what your reaction was to this poll.
I wish I could say I was surprised. I would so love to see this number change. It's such a big opportunity. Oh, it breaks my heart. I think the one that, if you add that up, 95% of people are saying that they don't do this well, or they're just okay, or they don't do it well at all. And when you think about the single area that you could focus on to have the single biggest impact on both revenue growth and profitability, right? It's renewal, expansion, and upsell. I just saw an article that said a 1% change in net recurring revenue can yield something like $700 million for an average company. And I believe it, if you do the math on what adding 1 percentage point to your current net recurring revenue could yield, you will be astounded by that number. And then you got to say, how do I get there? Easy answer to that question is going to be, let's get marketing involved. There's a great opportunity, which is why I'm super happy that Hunter's here with us today. John, you want to introduce our wonderful guest, and we can have Hunter weigh in?
Yeah, absolutely. And Hunter, I'd be very curious. I know we shared earlier that you've been a CMO in multiple roles, and now you're a CMO at Churn Zero, kind of at the ground floor of another exciting startup and revolution, I would think, in the whole customer success and marketing area. Hunter, what was your reaction to the poll? Like, what are you seeing in terms of trends of marketing's involvement on the other side of the bow tie?
Yeah, no, it was very timely. I mentioned earlier today, we had our virtual conference yesterday, and we had Jason Lemkin on, what we call the godfather of SaaS, right? And our CEO asked him, kind of how do SaaS companies do with marketing and customer marketing? He said that they don't do very well at all, right? So I think that's sort of a common knowledge now throughout the industry. It's we've put a big number now, as Megan said, on retention and expansion, right? Net revenue retention is the big number that everyone talks about for SaaS. So you've put this big number out there, but now you're trying to figure out how do you really affect it, and who does it, who owns it, who's responsible for it? Is the CS organization, does marketing have a position in there? Like everyone knows in SaaS organizations, marketing owns a portion of the bookings, right? We have to bring in demos, we have to bring in conversions. Like we figured that one out 5 and 10 years ago. On the CS side, I don't think it's quite been figured out. On the customer success and customer side, who does it, who owns it? We had in our in-person conference a month and a half ago, we had Lotney Conant from Sixth Sense and our Chief Customer Officer, Abby Hammer, on a panel, and they were talking about customer marketing and who owns it. And there was a discussion, and not everyone agrees, right? Lotney's like, hey, you guys know how to relationship, but I know how to talk to the customers. I'm going to do campaigns. And Abby said, well, I kind of know how to talk to the customers too. And I have a platform now, and I know what they're doing, and I can hit them when I know I need to hit them and not hit them when I shouldn't hit them. But the same thing on marketing, I can come back and say, I see the same information. So, so it's, for us, it's a little bit of a, we almost have an unofficial SLA with CS. They have a full disclosure, we have a platform that manages that relationship, and they see a lot of what's going on, product usage, NPS, open tickets, right? They have a very 360-degree view of the customer. But they're about relationships where marketing can come in and add value. Hey, we have a webinar that talks about a topic that we know is important to our customers, right? So we can kind of do that hand holding. We do events. When we had our conference to solicit customers to speak, the CS team reached out and said, hey, we think you'd be great to speak at our conference, right? So there's that a little bit of we're working our way through that relationship and where marketing sits. I think, I have a head count for next year for customer marketing. I'm going to bring somebody in, and Abby's fine with that, as long as we kind of have that SLA of when I'm going to mess up what she's also trying to do in terms of renewals and expansion and things like that.
And Hunter, you mentioned platforms being kind of a key piece of this, and you've obviously got a front row seat on that one. What do you think it changes when companies bring in a platform that allows them to be more proactive and sort of process driven in terms of engaging with customers? What do you think?
I mean, it's very, very similar to 10, 15 years ago with marketing automation for marketing teams, right? We now saw what customers are doing on their website. What are they downloading? Are they attending and not attending? Like, we start to see a lot more of those actions. The customer side, it's a very similar, but even deeper, right? We see what product features they're using or not using. We can do surveys, NPS, CSAT, like any of the metrics that are important to a CS team. And ultimately, you can see expansion opportunities, like, oh, they're not using this feature or this product. It's a good opportunity to ask them to take a look at it. So it's very similar in that way. The more data you have on your customers, the much, I guess, more prescriptive you can be and knowledgeable you can be when you reach out to them. Like I mentioned, if someone just gave you a 2 on an NPS, don't send them a gift that says, thanks for being a great customer, right? Like in the old days, marketing would send these gifts out and have no idea if a customer is happy or not happy, right? You just have to know your customers, and one-on-one relationships are fine, but the data is there to really, really give you that information insight to make sure that is a good relationship.
You've got kind of a bird's eye view in your role, Hunter, across multiple customers and even the industry. Who do you think are good bellwether examples to point to that you'd say, yeah, this company is doing really well, and why? Like, why would you point to those companies as kind of the standards?
I mean, I would look, one is G2. We're a customer of G2 and we use G2, and everyone does. It's a great platform, but they have a CSM who's very proactive. She will send out standard emails of, here's some things I'm thinking about and doing, but then she'll also have standard calls with our team. She's put us in a beta program, right? Like, she's helped us with our integration. It's not simply, here are the instructions, here's you integrate, go, right? It's, hey, is it set up? Is it working properly? Are you getting value out of what we've just sent to you? And we see a lot of value. And that's why we keep really leaning into G2, because of that relationship. They make it easy for us to do more and find value. We also came to them, we said, hey, we think we should be in a couple more categories. And she walked us through what you need to do, how you need to apply. When we got denied for one, we said why. She gave us feedback. Like, it's very, you feel like she's actually trying to make you more successful and not just sort of going through the motion. Like, one of the things that's a big debate within our even organization is QBRs, right? Some people say everyone needs to do a QBR. We have some people say, well, QBR seems like it's out of touch. If you're just scheduling a quarterly call, you should be doing it when you have something to talk about, not when you just simply have to review a bunch of stats. Again, it could be debated. Some people think they're very valuable, and I wouldn't take them away. But there's things like that of how the relationship's being managed. And then one other one, HubSpot. I've used HubSpot the last 10 years. They do a very good job, right? They include us in content. They come to us and say, hey, we think you should do a blog post on this. It's really good. I'll ding them a little bit. Sometimes they ask to say, hey, do you want to look at our customer relationship or basically like a customer success tool? I'm like, do you know what we do? Like, that's your competitor of ours in that area. But everyone's, they're perfect.
That's funny. Double-edged sword there for sure.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, maybe you could tell us a little bit, and I know we didn't sort of talk about this in advance, but if you're comfortable, would love to get your thoughts about how the market is shifting for platforms. Given that you've got sort of marketing automation on one side and you've got customer success tools that have had this really strong part of the market for a while now. Like, what do you see as some of the market changes over the next year or so, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it's like I said at the beginning, CS organizations and CS leaders are going to be asked to show real numbers, like a sales team, right? What's your projection for renewals and expansion? What's your net revenue retention? And if you don't have a tool or a way to do that, it could be custom Salesforce, right? You don't have to. We have a lot of people customize Salesforce to make it work that way. There are smaller platforms that can help you, but if you don't have that insight, then you're going to start to be either questioned or you're going to not have kind of that, as we say, a seat at the table that people are going to ask for. I mean, when we did our Series B round, in every meeting that our CEO had, net revenue retention and customer churn was one of the 2 or 3 metrics I wanted to know, because that was a sign of kind of health and expansion and also maturity of an organization. When you know that and when you can manage that, you at least have your finger on the pulse. Maybe you haven't figured it all out, but at least you're tracking it.
Yeah, right on. I love seeing that evolution too. I think for customer success teams to have though, that great quantitative underpinning, because it makes them that much more credible.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an opportunity. But maybe we could switch gears. You were sharing with us some really neat examples of how you are directly engaging customers right now and how you're thinking about it through the next year in terms of the actions that you're putting in place, the tactics that you're using. And one of them was a tactic that's near and dear to the hearts of, I'm sure, many people that are listening today. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you're putting into your plans this year.
Yeah. So one of the things that we were doing pre-pandemics is we did these local meetups, and we had for 2020, we had 26, right? Go all over the country, we go to the big cities, small cities. And we usually do one a customer's office, and we'd have 25, 30 people in there and a panel, and it worked really well. Obviously that went by the wayside the last year and a half, but we've actually started them up again. We've already done in Q4, we've done Denver, Chicago, and then in Boston, and we have 2 coming up in December. We have DC and Austin. So, we are going to double down on those and probably do 40 next year, because what they provide is, one, our customers, they love it when we come there and interact with them, and we make them panelists. Like every customer wants to feel like they know what they're doing, and ours, what they do. But then it's getting other people together. I mean, I went to one in Denver before the pandemic hit, and someone saying, I just love these CS meetups. I mean, they didn't mention Churn Zero, which is fine with us, right? Like, it's not supposed to be a selling opportunity for Churn Zero. It's meant to be get CS people together. So, I'm amazed. They were here before I started. I'm not taking credit for them, but they do a great job of getting people together and talking about the practice, because I mean, it's unique, it's growing. People don't know everything. They're trying to learn. They're quickly moving up from a manager to a director and a VP, with a year or 2. So they need the skills and the understanding. And sometimes the best way to do it is by interacting with people in the same situation. So we're very excited about those.
I'm going to ask a totally different question here, but totally related to the CS thought process and thinking about an account-based motion or strategy. And let's take, for example, a smaller SaaS looking to get into enterprise clients and looking to penetrate further into that market. On one hand, there's a lot of coordination between sales and marketing to get that kind of initiative off the ground. On the other hand, we hear a lot of people talking about, including Megan and myself and others, that you want to try to incorporate CS or CX into that account-based motion. Are you hearing or seeing any trends there in terms of where CS and CX plays a role in a quote unquote account-based strategy?
So are you saying, say, once they're a customer and we're trying to kind of expand, or are you saying in pre-sale?
Even just in the process side of getting everybody together and talking about an account-based strategy, like a lot of companies have a lead-based motion and they're pretty embedded for years. They've been doing a lead-based motion. And now all of a sudden in 2022, the CEO and others say, yeah, let's do an account-based motion. How active is CS and CX in that conversation right now? Are they an active participant, kind of more distant?
I think my experience is a little more distant. I think you're getting, that's probably ahead of where the CS world is right now. I mean, I agree with you that that's where we need to go, but right now I think it's a little harder for them to understand and fit that when they're kind of managing their book of business and finding those opportunities. I mean, they can find expansion within their people they know, but kind of finding that next, who are we going to go find out within the organization? I think that's probably one step a little too far for them today, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I mean, that totally mirrors what we're seeing too. Like, there's a few vendors out there that are talking about unifying everybody, sales, marketing, customer success, customer experience, but it's super difficult, even just to pull it off and on the sales and marketing side, let alone bring in CS and CX. It's almost like a prioritization kind of exercise.
I mean, I will say we brought 6 cents in about a month and a half ago. And we do have that sort of out there, right? We already are using it. We can see when customers are looking around, like we have triggers if they're looking at a competitor, right? Oh, that could be a churn issue, right? So I think you just take it one step further, who else in an organization can we look at? So tools like a 6 cents that are trying to kind of be the ABX. And once you can pull customer data in there, I think that there's a huge possibility. We just have to get that alignment going. Right now, you're talking about sales, marketing, and CS. That's a big group.
What are some of the things that you've seen succeed with trying to bring those groups together? Are there some, thoughts or examples of situations where it's worked pretty well?
I mean, I will definitely say I see a lot of on the sales and CS side, right? Like, hey, who's our customer? Who's our ideal customer? And CS really keeping sales honest, because what happens if you get the wrong customer and they come in, now you may not know immediately, but you're going to know 9 months later when they churn, and the CS team is not going to be happy that if they get hit on the churn, even though they knew from the very first day that was a wrong customer, right? So we track that. Our CS organization, our CCO and our head of sales, they talk, right? And so when somebody comes over that doesn't look like a good fit, Abby has a conversation with Jason and says, what were you thinking when you brought this one in? And now they've been working together for 2.5 years. Those are very seldom do those happen, right? I mean, you got to keep, because I mean, look, sales wants to sell and we got goals and they've got to do it. But the company understands that you can't just bring in bad fits, because that'll churn in a year. And then that churn number is not, no one's happy with that. So I've definitely seen that. I mean, it's a little more basic and straightforward, but it goes a long way, right? It goes a long way in terms of making sure the CS organization works with people that are a good fit for the product, potentially some opportunity for upsell and expansion.
This might be a bit of an unfair question, but I'll ask anyway. And thinking about kind of board of directors, because I'm guessing you're probably targeting more on the smaller side of business. Maybe I should start there. Or smaller meaning not necessarily enterprise business, but mid-market business. Is that a
mid-market? Yeah, we're probably
okay.
100 to 450 employee size companies.
Are you getting any feedback on the board of directors asking for information reporting wise, or not just reporting wise, but that head of CS or head of CX, are they interfacing with the board, or is sales and marketing bringing that story to the board on the net retention dollars or net retention revenue? Like, what's that dialogue look like internally?
It's more and more being owned by a CS organization. Like, we did a study, we've done it 2 years in a row. We did it with a company called ESG and Higher Logic. And just in terms of those metrics of, we ask questions like, do you report to the CEO? What are your metrics that you report up to the board? And we're seeing over 50% of the organizations and the people who replied are saying that it is their number, they're responsible for it, and they have a seat at the table. So it is going up as I said, as more and more of these SaaS companies are told these are metrics, and you need to own it. That responsibility is being put to the CS organization. Definitely seeing that.
That's an interesting one, because I think I go back to what you said, which I really agree with, is, this all starts back with, have we chosen the right ICP in terms of the people who can most get impact from what we do? And then is sales selling to that ICP so that we're bringing in business that we have some hope of renewing? And then if, God forbid, those two things are not in place, and then we're asking our friends in customer success to be responsible for those numbers, I hope that heads of customer success are listening to this and thinking about, okay, how do I make sure that I'm being set up for success then? If I'm accountable for it,
Right.
then I need to make sure that others who have a pretty significant hand in delivering on it are helping me out. Do you see that at all coming up? Or
No, I do. And then that's because, and also based on the organization, if the company's number is a net revenue retention, then everybody owns that number. So sales can get called out for selling to the wrong person. CS can, if they're not hitting their number and they're not creating new opportunities, product, right? Product has to build the product and build new features that fit the customers. And when you move up market, and the same thing on marketing, if marketing brings a bunch of people in that, aren't the right fit, or the message is wrong, or people think that we do one thing and we do another thing. I mean, that's where it's a company number, right? That's where it has to be. It can't be, yes, sales has a sales number, and maybe sales and marketing share that one. But I think the NRR number, it's everybody, because it's product and sales, it's marketing, and we all, and then it becomes a board number. And when it's a board number, then it's definitely everybody's number.
Yeah, for sure. I think breaking it into the component parts so you don't feel like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can have an impact on that number. If somebody else messes up, I have no chance of meeting my number. It's like, how do you break it into the parts that say, oh yeah, I got that. Like I can own that and it's going to contribute. I think that line of sight is kind of the key. But definitely I see, Joe, you're saying interest level is high in our topic today, and definitely want to open it up to the group given the time we have left. Who's got questions for Hunter? Got a great resource here.
Hey, Meg, I have a question.
Go for it. Hey, Lenise, how you doing?
Good. Hey, team. Hey, Hunter, thanks so much. This is super insightful. So I was curious, at what point do you determine marketing should engage with the CS team to develop programs? And again, based off of, I love what you mentioned about the data that's available to us so we can be more intentional on the programs, but is that something that should be immediate low-hanging fruit that not enough people are doing right now? Or is there some level of maturity that's needed with the customer base that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's never too early to engage with a CS organization. I mean, especially even from the basic classic marketing, hey, we need a case study. But we go to the CS team. When it was 5 of them, I would in Slack say, hey, we need a good case study of a customer that does X, Y, or Z. And they would reply, and because you want to get a healthy customer, right? So that's kind of the low-hanging fruit, easy co-marketing stuff to do with a CS organization. But you kind of build up that relationship, and we use them for blog posts, and then we want to build them up as experts too. So I think there's lots of ways at the very beginning to get that relationship going, and then there's also, you build that trust, right? So they know marketing is not just out to create a lot of clickbait and whatever people can get, top 10 lists and blog posts. We actually want to do some really thoughtful and content, and then they are the experts, like, for us. So yeah, I think it's never too early to get them engaged. As long as you have if you have a good relationship with them, it goes a long way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Who else has questions? And we'll jump in. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for being here.
Hey, Joe.
So we're talking about that relationship between marketing and sales, and that being like a pretty well established, like, people understand the standard operating procedures around that relationship. And if you think about sales enablement, it's like, how does marketing enable sales? And seems to be less common to see a customer success enablement, where, if customer success has visibility into opportunities, they could be enabled. They have a need for enablement.
Right.
How do you see marketing organizations and customer success starting to blaze those trails of being able to focus resources
right
internally? Because if a sales team is like, hey, we're gonna have this account opportunity is coming up, let's go, and then usually marketing's like, we're on it. But then customer success is a little bit less urgent, and it's like, yeah, there's an opportunity potentially over there. Like, how, as an organization, can marketing generally start to focus more of those resources on that?
Right. I mean, and to me, I think it's almost a little easier to go to the CS side, because I think you have the ability or potential to have much better data on your customers, what products they use, or products they don't use. I mean, I give an example, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we started to build out our product more till we had an enterprise type, more advanced features. And so going and working with the CS team to identify those customers who fit a profile that we could kind of move them up because we knew they needed these features and they were ready to pay for it. That we could then target them. We could do webinars, we could do a blog post. Like you could do the soft education that the CS side sort of prefers. They don't want the hard, hey, do a demo, come out there and really kind of be in everybody's, in the prospect's face. So I think that because you can know a lot more, you can be a little bit more prescriptive and nuanced in that communication. So if you have the information, you have the relationship, or even if you just go to the CS team and say, okay, what are you guys what feature is not working or they're not adopting that you think makes a big difference? And they say, oh, maybe, in-app communications, like, all right, let's go do a campaign for those and see if we can get the uptick on usage. So that's what I like about the opportunities now on the CS side. Like you have a real relationship that you're building on and adding to and showing value and making customers happy so they want to stick around. And marketing can, we want to make everybody happy, right? That's our job. It's a little more fun with customers than it is with prospects in a lot of ways.
Awesome.
Hitting the bottom of the hour here, but maybe one last question before we kind of wrap things. If you were to give one piece of advice to marketers in dealing with their CS or CX team member or organization, what would that advice be?
I'd say just whoever the lead of that CS organization is, have weekly meetings with them, even if it's a half an hour. Just catch up. What are you doing? What are you working on? How can I help? Because you start to build up and then you start to know, okay, gosh, I really think they want more content or may want this or that. They may not tell you right away, but as you start to hear their issues and what they're trying to solve for and support them, I think that comes out. It's just about that relationship. And there's some CS people think, oh, marketing is just fluff. And yeah, you can go do the blog posts and the emails. We don't need you, right? And you need to kind of get them to understand that no, we're not all like that.
I've never heard that conversation before.
You never had that, right?
Oh my gosh. I feel like it's Back to the Future, right? It's right. Like, didn't we just finish this with sales?
Right, exactly. Now, right.
We're picking it up with CS.
We won that side of the battle or the bow tie. Now we got to go to the other side and get them up. But they're a little more welcoming group than sales. I love sales, but a CS team is a little bit more open to some ideas.
And a treasure trove of great stuff too, in terms of ideas and collaboration. Actually, I love working with CS teams. I'm glad you brought up too, just that simple act of meeting, right? Yeah. Of connecting, how important that is. And it's just great. It's excellent advice. Yeah. Hunter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks guys. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent. And next week, we're eating turkey next week. So don't come next Friday. No one will be here. But the 3rd, I think it's December 3rd on Friday, we've got the head of Google's ABM initiative. So Desiree Daniels will be joining us. And that'll be a really interesting conversation to hear how a B2C company that's got B2B, Google Cloud and other elements, how they're thinking about account-based strategies there. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation. And Hunter, just want to thank you again for investing the time to answer questions and share your vision.
I loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for being here. Happy Friday.